I could spend all day between your 19-year-old CEO's son admits to his father's secretary. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma sat at the table nervously, her fingers fiddling with the edge of the napkin. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would give this blind date a try, even though everything in her screamed that she didn't belong in a fancy restaurant like this. The polished wood floors, the soft clink of silverware, and the warm, ambient light only made her feel more out of place. Her dress was secondhand, and her shoes were scuffed from too many days spent on her feet at the diner. As she took a deep breath, she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone around her could tell she didn't belong. "Okay, Emma. You've got this," she whispered to herself, her reflection in the glass door of the restaurant a stark reminder of the life she was trying to leave behind. She stepped inside, heart pounding as she scanned the room. Her eyes landed on a man sitting alone at the back of the room, his dark hair neatly styled and his attention fixed on his phone. He had to be him, right? Kevin, the man she was supposed to meet. Table 7, she muttered under her breath, moving toward the man. When she reached his table, she smiled awkwardly. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." Liam Parker looked up from his phone, startled. His eyes were wide for a moment, as if trying to place her. Hi, Emma." There was a brief moment of confusion before he nodded. She thought he seemed shy, but then again, blind dates were always awkward, right? She slid into the seat across from him, trying to fill the uncomfortable silence. "I know, this is weird, right? Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." Liam opened his mouth as if to correct her but hesitated. His phone buzzed, a text from his business associate about a cancelled meeting, and for some reason, Emma's earnest smile made him pause. She wasn't like the polished socialites or the women who threw themselves at him for his money and status. She was different, and for a brief moment, that intrigued him. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, offering a small smile, deciding to play along. Emma laughed nervously, taking a sip of her water. "Tell me about it. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy, you know, with work and everything." She winced, realizing how that must have sounded. "I'm a waitress," she added quickly, looking down at her hands, fiddling with her napkin. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them, anyway. Enough about me, though. What do you do?" "Tech," Liam replied, his smile widening slightly as he leaned back in his chair. "Tech?" Emma's eyes lit up, eager to continue the conversation. "Like coding and apps and stuff?" "I'm terrible with computers." "Something like that," Liam said with a faint smile, watching her closely now. There was something refreshing about her straightforwardness. Most people would have tried to impress him with tales of success, but Emma didn't seem to care about impressing him. She just wanted to talk. "So, what do you do for fun?" she asked, genuinely curious. Liam paused. He hadn't expected the question, and it made him think. Most of his life was consumed by meetings, deals, and managing a company that was growing faster than he could keep up with. He hadn't had fun in a long time. "I don't know," he admitted with a small chuckle. "I guess I spend a lot of time working. Not much room for anything else." Emma smiled. "Well, you need to make time for fun, or you're going to burn out. I mean, what's the point of all the work if you can't enjoy life a little?" Liam stared at her for a moment, surprised by how sincere and confident she was, even in the midst of her awkwardness. It was refreshing. The night continued, and they talked about everything from their favorite books to the best places to eat in the city. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, and even Liam seemed more at ease, his usual stiff demeanor softening around her. It felt like the night was flying by. But then, just as they were getting comfortable, Emma's phone buzzed. She looked at the message, and her heart sank. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7 looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." She looked up at Liam, her face flushing bright red. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're not Kevin, are you?" Liam's smile faltered, and for a brief second, he felt guilty. "No, I'm not." Emma stood up, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else." Without another word, she grabbed her coat and rushed out the door, leaving Liam sitting there with a mixture of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. Why did he feel bad about letting her go? Why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? As Emma rushed out of the restaurant, her mind was spinning. She couldn't believe she had made such a fool of herself. She had just sat at the wrong table, talked to the wrong person, and now she felt humiliated. "Great," she muttered, slumping into her seat on the subway. This was a disaster. But deep down, a part of her knew that she wasn't ready to let go of the connection they had shared, no matter how embarrassing it had been. Was it just a silly mix-up? Or was there something more to this strange, accidental encounter? After the mix-up at the restaurant, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. As the days went by, her life returned to its usual grind, working double shifts at the diner, scraping by with just enough to cover rent and food. But her mind kept drifting back to Liam, the man she had mistakenly met. There was something about him, something real and genuine, that she hadn't expected to find on a blind date. She kept telling herself it was just a fluke, a funny mistake, but the thought of him lingered like an unspoken question. Why had she felt so comfortable around him? Why did the thought of never seeing him again feel like a missed opportunity? But Emma pushed these thoughts aside. She didn't have time for distractions, especially ones that came with confusing emotions. She had bills to pay, dreams of opening her own art studio, and a life that didn't leave much room for fairy tales. So, life went on as usual. That was until her phone buzzed one evening while she was working at the diner. She glanced at the screen, expecting another spam message, but froze when she saw the text. "Hi Emma, it's Liam. I know it was a mix-up last time, but I'd really like to see you again. How about coffee?" Her heart skipped a beat. Liam? He had actually texted her. He wanted to see her again? She quickly typed back, unsure of what to say. "Coffee sounds nice," she replied, her fingers trembling slightly as she hit send. She sat back in her chair, a mixture of excitement and nerves filling her chest. It wasn't that she hadn't dated before, but something about this felt different. She had no idea what to expect, but a part of her was hoping this wouldn't be the last time she heard from him. The next morning, Emma was running late, as usual. She threw on a simple jacket over her uniform and rushed out the door, her heart racing with every step. She hadn't felt this nervous about meeting someone in a long time. As she walked into the coffee shop, her eyes scanned the room until they landed on Liam sitting at a small table in the corner. He was dressed casually today, in jeans and a sweater, looking completely different from the polished image she remembered from their first meeting. He looked up when she entered, and a smile spread across his face. "Hey, Emma. Thanks for meeting me." She smiled back, feeling her nerves ease slightly as she sat down. "No problem," she replied, her voice a little steadier now. "I'm sorry again about the mix-up the other day. That was embarrassing." Liam chuckled, his smile warm and understanding. "It's okay. I thought it was kind of funny, actually. But I get it, blind dates are awkward." They both laughed, the tension melting away as they began to talk. Emma found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't expected. They talked about everything and nothing, about work, about their lives, about the little things that made them who they were. Liam listened intently, his gaze soft and encouraging, and Emma felt like she could finally breathe without trying to impress him. As they spoke, she couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to him. There was none of the usual pressure, no pretense. He wasn't like the guys she had dated before, who were always trying to one-up each other. Liam was different, he was real, and that made her feel more comfortable than she had in ages. "So, tell me more about you," she said, leaning forward slightly. "What do you do for fun, aside from tech stuff?" Liam raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "For fun? Well, it's been a while since I've had time for that. But I guess I like to travel when I can. I like being outdoors, hiking, stuff like that." Emma's eyes lit up. "Hiking? I love hiking. It's one of the few things I can do to clear my head." Liam smiled, clearly pleased by her enthusiasm. "Maybe you can show me some of your favorite spots sometime." Emma felt a warm flutter in her chest. Was he flirting with her? The thought made her heart race again. But she tried not to overthink it. They were just having a conversation, and she wasn't going to ruin it by reading too much into his words. They continued talking, the conversation flowing easily as they sipped their coffee. Time seemed to fly by, and before they knew it, the coffee shop was starting to empty out. Emma glanced at her watch, realizing that she was almost late for her shift at the diner. "I should probably get going," she said reluctantly. Liam nodded, standing up as she did. "Yeah, me too. But it was really nice seeing you again, Emma. Let's do this again sometime, okay?" She smiled, feeling a wave of relief. "Definitely." As she walked out of the coffee shop, she couldn't wipe the smile off her face. The last few days had been a whirlwind, and she wasn't sure what to expect from Liam or where things might go. But one thing was for sure, she was looking forward to seeing him again. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were starting to look up. It had been a week since Emma met Liam for coffee, and things were starting to feel different. Her shift at the diner had become more bearable, knowing that she had plans to see him again. Liam had texted her a few times since their coffee date, and each time her heart fluttered a little bit more. She wasn't used to this feeling, the anticipation, the excitement. It had been so long since she allowed herself to feel something other than exhaustion and stress. The truth was, she had no idea where this was going, but for the first time in a while, she was okay with not knowing. As the days passed, their texts turned into longer phone calls, and soon, they found themselves planning to meet again. Emma couldn't help but notice how easy it was to talk to him, how genuine he was. It was as if he really wanted to get to know her, and not in the way that most guys did. He wasn't looking for something superficial, something to pass the time. He wanted something real. And for once, she wasn't afraid to let her guard down. They decided to meet at a small park near Emma's apartment one Saturday afternoon. The sun was shining, the air crisp with the hint of autumn, and there was something peaceful about the quiet park that made Emma feel like she could finally relax. As she waited for Liam by a bench near the fountain, she thought about how much her life had changed in just a few short weeks. She had gone from being a waitress struggling to make ends meet to someone who, for the first time, felt like she had something to look forward to. When Liam finally arrived, he was wearing a light jacket and a pair of jeans, looking casually handsome as usual. He smiled when he saw her, and Emma couldn't help but smile back. "Hey, you made it," she said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the excitement she felt. Liam nodded, his eyes sparkling with that same warmth that had drawn her to him in the first place. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied, sitting down beside her. They both leaned back on the bench, the sounds of birds chirping in the background, the wind gently rustling the leaves of the trees. For a moment, neither of them said anything, just enjoying the quiet. It felt comfortable, like they had known each other for much longer than just a few weeks. "So, how's the art studio coming along?" Liam asked, breaking the silence. Emma looked over at him, surprised that he remembered. "It's slowly coming together," she said, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I've been saving up for supplies, and I've been working on a few pieces here and there. I'm still a long way from opening my own place, but I haven't given up yet." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "I think it's amazing that you're doing that. Not everyone has the courage to follow their dreams like you do. Emma felt a flush of warmth spread across her cheeks. She wasn't used to receiving compliments, especially not from someone like Liam. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft. I want to make something of myself, you know? Something that's mine. It's the one thing I've always wanted." Liam smiled at her, and in that moment, Emma could see something in his eyes, something more than just admiration. It was like he saw her in a way no one else ever had. He saw her potential, her strength, her determination. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt seen. The conversation turned to lighter topics, and they spent the next hour talking about their favorite books, movies, and childhood memories. Emma found herself laughing more than she had in ages, and Liam's laughter was like a melody that made her feel at ease. It was one of those rare moments where time seemed to stop, where the world around them faded, and all that mattered was the connection they were building. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over everything, Liam stood up and extended his hand to her. "How about we grab dinner?" he asked. "I know a place nearby. It's not fancy, but the food is great." Emma looked up at him, her heart racing. She hadn't expected to spend the evening with him, but now that the idea was out there, she didn't want to say no. "Sure," she said, taking his hand and standing up. "I'd like that." As they walked toward the restaurant, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of hope blooming in her chest. Things were moving faster than she expected, but for once, she wasn't afraid. She was ready for this. She was ready for whatever came next. Little did she know, this dinner would be a turning point in their relationship, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love and trust. After their dinner, Emma couldn't stop smiling. The evening had been perfect, everything about it felt right. Liam had taken her to a small, cozy restaurant not far from the park, and the food was simple but delicious. They shared a few plates, and the conversation flowed effortlessly, as if they had known each other for years instead of just a few weeks. It was a side of Liam she hadn't seen before, someone who wasn't just a successful businessman but also someone who appreciated the little things in life. As they finished their meal, Liam paid the bill, but not before teasing her about how she had managed to eat half of his fries. "I swear, Emma, you're a food thief," he said, laughing as he reached for his wallet. "Hey, I only took what you weren't going to eat," she teased back, playfully pushing his shoulder. They both laughed, the air light and comfortable, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. As they stepped outside into the cool evening air, Liam walked with her to her apartment. They weren't quite ready to part ways yet, the connection between them too strong to let go. The streets were quieter now, the usual bustle of the city fading into the background as they strolled side by side. "You know," Liam began, glancing over at her, "I never thought I'd find someone like you." Emma looked up at him, her heart fluttering in her chest. "Someone like me?" she asked, feeling a little self-conscious. He smiled, his eyes soft as he met her gaze. "Yeah, someone who doesn't try to impress. Someone real." She felt her breath catch in her throat. He was right. She wasn't used to being seen for who she truly was, especially by someone like Liam. She had always been the girl who worked hard to keep her head above water, never thinking she deserved someone who truly understood her. But now, with him, she felt like maybe she did. They arrived at her building, and Liam stopped at the door, his hands in his pockets. "Well, this is me," she said, feeling a little sad that the evening was coming to an end. "I had a really great time tonight," Liam said, his voice sincere. "Me too," she replied softly, her smile genuine. There was a pause, a moment where neither of them seemed to want to say goodbye just yet. "I'm glad we did this," Liam said, his voice low. "Yeah, me too," she said, her heart racing a little faster. She wasn't sure where this was going, but in that moment, she didn't care. She was just happy to be here, with him. As she turned to unlock the door, Liam stepped a little closer, his hand brushing against hers. It was a small touch, but it sent a spark of warmth through her. He didn't pull away immediately, instead, he lingered for a moment, his fingers lightly grazing hers before he pulled back, as if waiting for her response. "You know," he said after a beat, "I'd really like to see you again." Emma looked up at him, feeling a smile spread across her face. "I'd like that too." They stood there for a moment, the world around them silent, the only sound the faint rustling of leaves in the breeze. Liam nodded, his eyes locked on hers, and with one last smile, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway, her heart beating a little faster than it had before. As she closed the door behind her, she leaned against it, closing her eyes for a moment. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. She smiled to herself, her thoughts drifting back to Liam. He had become more than just a man she met by accident, he was someone she could see herself with, someone who made her feel seen in a way she had never felt before. Maybe this was the start of something real. She could only hope. The next few days felt like a dream to Emma. Every time she checked her phone, there was a message from Liam. It wasn't just casual small talk either, it was real, meaningful conversation. He asked about her artwork, about her day, and even about her plans for the future. Emma found herself looking forward to each text, her heart fluttering a little more each time her phone buzzed. It wasn't just that he was kind, or that he made her feel special, there was something deeper, something about the way he listened, the way he seemed to truly care about her thoughts and feelings. She had never experienced this kind of attention before, and for the first time, she was starting to believe that maybe she deserved it. But despite the excitement, Emma couldn't completely shake her doubts. She had spent so much of her life in survival mode, trying to get by, trying to make ends meet, that she wasn't sure she could fully let herself fall for someone like Liam. He was a millionaire, a businessman, someone with a life that was completely different from hers. She couldn't help but wonder what he really saw in her. Was she just a distraction? Someone to pass the time while he focused on more important things? Or was there something real here? Her thoughts were interrupted one afternoon when she received a call from Liam. "Hey, Emma," his voice was warm and familiar through the phone. "I've been thinking. Would you like to go on a trip with me? It's a weekend getaway, nothing fancy, just a little break from the city. What do you think?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. A trip? With Liam? She was stunned for a moment, unsure of how to respond. She had always been careful, never jumping into things too quickly. But the idea of spending more time with him, away from the distractions of their everyday lives, felt like a chance to truly connect. "A weekend getaway sounds amazing," she said, trying to keep her excitement in check. "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise," he replied with a playful tone. "But I promise, it'll be fun. Just you and me, and a quiet place to relax for a couple of days." Emma couldn't help but smile. The thought of spending time alone with Liam, away from everything, sounded perfect. She hadn't realized just how much she needed a break from her routine, from the constant pressure of work, until now. "I'd love to go," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of excitement. "When do we leave?" "How about Friday?" Liam suggested. "I'll pick you up at your place around noon." Emma agreed, feeling a wave of anticipation wash over her. As the days leading up to the trip passed, she found herself growing more and more excited. She packed her bags, made sure everything was in order at the diner, and even treated herself to a new outfit for the trip. She wanted to look her best, but more than that, she wanted to feel confident. When Friday arrived, she was a bundle of nerves and excitement. As noon approached, she found herself pacing around her apartment, checking the clock every few minutes. The knock on the door came just as she was about to sit down. She opened it to find Liam standing there, looking effortlessly handsome in a casual outfit. "Ready for our adventure?" he asked with a smile. Emma nodded, her heart racing. "Ready as I'll ever be." Liam smiled, reaching for her bag and handing her a small bouquet of flowers. "These are for you," he said, his eyes sparkling. Emma felt a rush of warmth flood her chest. "Thank you," she said softly, taking the flowers and inhaling their sweet scent. "They're beautiful." They walked out together, Liam holding the door open for her, and as they got into his car, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of calm. There was something about being with him, something that made the world feel less overwhelming, less chaotic. As they drove, the conversation flowed easily. They talked about everything and nothing, about their favorite books, their childhood memories, and what they were looking forward to in the future. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't just existing, she was truly living. They arrived at the cabin later that afternoon, a small but cozy house nestled in the woods, far away from the city's noise and distractions. It was peaceful, the kind of place where you could hear the birds singing and the wind rustling through the trees. As they settled in, Emma felt her shoulders relax, the tension from the past few weeks slowly melting away. She realized, with a surprising sense of clarity, that this was exactly what she needed. A break. A chance to truly connect with Liam. They spent the evening cooking dinner together, sharing stories and laughter. The simple act of being together, without the pressures of the world around them, felt so natural. As the night grew darker, Liam lit a fire in the fireplace, and they curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, talking until the early hours of the morning. In that quiet cabin, with the crackling of the fire in the background, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. The beginning of something real, something that could change her life in ways she never expected. The weekend getaway had been everything Emma needed and more. The peaceful cabin in the woods, far from the noise of the city, gave her the clarity she hadn't realized she was missing. She had spent so much time focused on surviving, working long shifts, barely making ends meet, that she had forgotten what it felt like to truly relax, to be in the moment. And being with Liam, away from everything, made her realize just how much she had been holding back. It wasn't just the quiet or the fresh air, it was the connection between them, the way he listened to her, the way he made her feel like she mattered. Over the weekend, they shared meals, took long walks in the woods, and talked about their hopes and dreams. There were no pretenses between them, no expectations. For once, Emma wasn't worried about what she said, how she looked, or whether she was enough. She felt accepted for exactly who she was. By the time they were ready to leave on Sunday afternoon, Emma felt lighter, as if a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying had been lifted. Liam seemed to sense this change in her. "You look different," he said as they packed their bags into the car. "More relaxed." Emma smiled, looking at him. "I feel different," she admitted. "This weekend, it was just what I needed. Thank you for bringing me here." Liam smiled back, his eyes softening. "I'm glad you had a good time. I think we both needed a break." As they drove back to the city, the world seemed to feel a little less overwhelming. Emma sat in the passenger seat, her head resting against the window, watching the scenery pass by. Liam occasionally glanced over at her, his eyes filled with something Emma couldn't quite place, affection, maybe. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt this cared for, this seen, and it was something she wasn't sure she was ready to acknowledge yet. But deep down, she knew this weekend had marked a shift in their relationship. They weren't just two people meeting by chance anymore. They were becoming something more. When they arrived back at her apartment, Liam turned off the car engine, but neither of them moved right away. The silence between them felt comfortable, like the calm after a storm. "I guess this is where we say goodbye for now," Liam said, his voice soft. Emma hesitated, feeling the sudden weight of the moment. She had grown used to the idea of him being in her life, and the thought of him leaving, even for a short time, didn't sit well. "I'll miss this," she said quietly. Liam turned to face her, his gaze intense. "I'll miss it too," he admitted. "I really enjoyed spending time with you, Emma. More than I expected." His words hung in the air, a mixture of sincerity and something else Emma couldn't quite place. She wanted to tell him how much she had enjoyed being with him, how much she had felt like something in her life was finally falling into place. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she simply nodded. "I did too. Thank you, Liam." As she opened the car door, Liam reached out and gently touched her arm. "Hey, I was thinking," he started, his voice a little hesitant. Emma turned back to him, her heart skipping a beat. Yeah? I'd like to see you again, he said, his eyes searching hers. Maybe dinner this week? I want to keep getting to know you, if that's okay with you. Emma felt a rush of warmth spread through her chest. She smiled, her heart racing. I'd like that, she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet excitement. Liam's face broke into a smile, and he nodded. Great. I'll text you the details. Emma closed the door behind her and watched as he drove off, her mind swirling with thoughts of the weekend and everything that had happened between them. As she stood in the doorway, she realized something. She wasn't just excited about seeing Liam again, she was beginning to believe in what they had. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the verge of something real, something that wasn't based on survival or settling for less. It was a chance at something more. She couldn't help but smile to herself as she walked into her apartment, her heart light and hopeful for the first time in what felt like forever. It had been a few days since Emma had agreed to meet Liam for dinner again. Her excitement had been growing with each passing moment, but so had the question swirling in her mind. She found herself wondering what this connection really meant, where it was going, and whether she was ready to take a leap of faith. For so long, she had kept her guard up, convinced that love was something reserved for other people, not someone like her. But now, with Liam, it felt different. The night of their dinner arrived, and Emma found herself standing in front of her mirror, adjusting her dress. She wanted to look her best, to impress him, but more than that, she wanted to feel confident. She wasn't just meeting Liam, she was meeting a new version of herself, someone who was beginning to believe that she deserved this kind of connection. She took one last look at her reflection before grabbing her coat and heading out the door. The weather was crisp, and the city felt alive with energy as she made her way to the restaurant. When she arrived, she spotted Liam immediately, sitting at a corner table. He was dressed in a smart suit, as usual, but tonight, there was something softer about him, something less guarded. He stood up as she approached, a smile spreading across his face. "Hey, Emma," he said warmly. "You look beautiful." Emma smiled, feeling a little bashful under his gaze. "Thank you." "You look great too," she replied, taking her seat across from him. They ordered dinner, but the conversation wasn't focused on the menu or the food. It was focused on them, on their lives, their dreams, their fears. Liam had always been open with her, but tonight, he seemed even more vulnerable, sharing stories about his past and the struggles he had faced along the way. "I know it seems like everything's been easy for me," Liam said, his voice softer than usual, "but I've worked hard to get where I am. And it's been lonely at times. I never really had someone to share the journey with." Emma listened closely, her heart aching for him. "You're not alone anymore," she said gently. "You've got me." Liam looked up, his eyes meeting hers. There was something in his gaze that made Emma's heart skip a beat. "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm starting to realize that maybe I've been looking for something real, something that isn't just about business or success. I've been looking for this. For connection. For someone who sees me for who I really am, not just the image I project to the world." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma felt a mix of emotions rising within her, hope, excitement, but also a little fear. Could this really be the start of something real? Could she let herself fall for someone like Liam, someone with so much at stake in his life, someone with a past so different from hers? "Liam, Emma began, but before she could finish her thought, he reached across the table and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, comforting, and everything she had been longing for without even realizing it. "You don't have to say anything," he said with a soft smile. "I know you're not sure yet. But I want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere." Emma's heart fluttered, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe this was real, that maybe this was the connection she had been waiting for. They spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and simply enjoying each other's company. It felt easy, natural, and Emma couldn't remember the last time she had felt so at peace with someone. When dinner was over, Liam walked her home, and as they reached her apartment, he turned to her with a serious look in his eyes. Emma, I need to be honest with you about something, he said, his voice low. Emma felt her heart race. What was he about to say? I don't want to rush things, he continued, but I've been thinking about you a lot, and I'm starting to realize something. I don't want to keep playing it safe. I don't want to just be your friend, Emma. I want to be more. I want to take a chance on us. Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she looked up at him. She had been so scared to admit her feelings, but now, hearing him say it out loud, it felt like everything was falling into place. I want that too, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that made Emma's heart swell. Then let's take this chance together, he said, leaning in to kiss her softly on the lips. It wasn't rushed or forced, it was slow, deliberate, and filled with a tenderness that left Emma breathless. As they pulled away, Emma couldn't help but smile. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment that would change everything. For the first time in her life, she was ready to embrace love, real love. And as Liam held her hand and walked her inside, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. The days after that evening felt like a whirlwind, and yet, Emma felt more grounded than she had in a long time. Liam and she had begun to spend more time together, both inside and outside of the small bubble they had created. It was as if their worlds, which had once seemed so far apart, were gradually coming together. They went on walks in the park, had dinner together at small, cozy spots in the city, and sometimes, just spent hours talking about their pasts, their hopes, and the things that made them laugh. Emma had never imagined that she could feel this way about someone, especially not someone like Liam. He was everything she wasn't, rich, powerful, and surrounded by a world she had never belonged to. And yet, with him, she felt like she was enough. She wasn't just the waitress trying to make ends meet anymore, she was Emma. Emma, who had a dream of her own art studio, Emma, who had a story worth sharing, Emma, who was more than her circumstances. One evening, after a long week of work, Liam called and asked if she would join him for dinner at his place. He had promised to cook, and she was curious to see how he would handle the kitchen. When she arrived, the aroma of roasted vegetables and something sweet filled the air. Liam greeted her at the door with a warm smile, his shirt slightly untucked as if he had been rushing around. "Hey, I hope you're hungry," he said, stepping aside to let her in. "I've made a little something, but no promises it'll be perfect." Emma raised an eyebrow, amused by the way he spoke. "I'm sure it'll be great," she said, stepping inside. The apartment was more spacious than she remembered, with floor-to-ceiling windows that gave a breathtaking view of the city skyline. As she looked around, she noticed it didn't feel like the cold, impersonal space she had once imagined. It felt lived in, warm, and full of life, just like Liam. "I think you might just surprise me," she teased as he led her to the dining table. "Maybe," he said, grinning as he pulled out the chair for her. "But I'm not known for my cooking skills." As they sat down to eat, Emma found herself smiling more than she had in ages. Liam, despite his success and wealth, was still the same person she had met at that restaurant weeks ago, the same man who had listened to her talk about her dreams, the same man who had made her laugh. The more she got to know him, the more she realized how much they shared, even though their worlds were so different. The evening passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and delicious food. They talked about everything and nothing, about his childhood, about the struggles he had faced in building his company, and about the things they wanted for the future. Emma found herself opening up more than she ever had before. There was something about Liam's genuine curiosity, the way he asked questions without judgment, that made her feel like she could be herself. "You know," Liam said as they finished their meal and leaned back in their chairs, "I've been thinking about something." Emma looked over at him, intrigued. "What's that?" "About us," he said, his voice soft. "About what this is?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. They hadn't really defined what was happening between them yet. She had been so caught up in the excitement, the newness of everything, that she hadn't stopped to really think about it. "What do you think it is?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam leaned forward, his gaze steady on hers. I think it's something real, he said, his eyes not leaving hers. And I think it's worth exploring. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had been afraid to admit it to herself, but in that moment, she realized that she was falling for him. She wasn't sure what the future would hold or what challenges they would face, but she knew she wanted to see where this went. I think it's worth exploring too, she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. Liam smiled, a genuine, soft smile that made Emma's heart flutter. I'm glad, he said. Because I don't want to lose this. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, Emma simply looked at him, feeling a rush of emotion. She had never felt this way before, so sure of something that had started as a chance encounter, a mistake. But now, it felt like fate, like the universe had nudged them together, and they were meant to find each other. As the evening came to a close, they shared a quiet moment, sitting together on the couch, the city lights sparkling outside the window. It was the kind of peaceful silence that spoke volumes, a silent understanding between them that things were changing. And for the first time, Emma didn't feel the need to rush or question it. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, with the person she was supposed to be with. When Liam kissed her goodnight at the door, she knew that this was only the beginning. The beginning of something beautiful, something real. Weeks had passed since that dinner at Liam's apartment, and Emma found herself falling deeper into the life she had always dreamed of. What had started as a simple, almost accidental meeting, was now turning into something that felt like destiny. Liam had become not just the man she was seeing, but someone who had changed the way she viewed her own life. She felt more confident in her dreams, more hopeful about the future, and more certain that she wasn't alone anymore. They continued to see each other regularly, and each time they met, the connection between them grew stronger. They traveled together, explored new places, and shared moments of vulnerability that made their bond feel even more real. Liam was no longer just the CEO of a successful company to her, he was Liam, the man who had listened to her dreams, who had supported her when she felt unsure of herself, and who had made her feel like she mattered. But even with all the good times they shared, Emma couldn't help but feel a twinge of doubt. Her fears, the ones she had buried so deep in the past, started creeping back in. She had never truly allowed herself to believe in a fairy tale, and even though everything with Liam felt right, she couldn't shake the fear that one day, it might all come crashing down. She had seen her share of broken relationships, of people who thought they had it all figured out, only to end up heartbroken in the end. Was she just setting herself up for another disappointment? It was on a rainy evening, as they sat together in Liam's apartment, that she finally voiced her fears. Liam, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she looked down at her hands. He looked up from his book, his expression soft and concerned. What's wrong? He asked, setting the book aside. Emma hesitated for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I'm scared, she admitted. I've never been in a relationship like this before, and I don't know how to trust that it's real. I don't want to get hurt again. Liam didn't say anything at first, just sat there, looking at her as though he was weighing her words carefully. Then, he reached over and gently took her hands in his. Emma, I understand why you feel that way, he said softly. I know you've been through a lot, and I know trust doesn't come easily. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, for real. This isn't a game for me. Emma looked up at him, her heart aching with the truth in his words. But how do I know? How can I be sure that this isn't just some fantasy, something that's too good to be true? Liam smiled, a warm, reassuring smile that made her chest tighten. Because, Emma, I don't want anyone else. I don't want anyone but you. I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I'm not going anywhere. Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, her heart swelling with the kind of emotion she had been afraid to allow herself to feel. I don't know how to do this, Liam, she whispered. I've spent so long building walls around myself, and now I'm scared to let them come down. Liam squeezed her hand gently, his thumb brushing over her skin. You don't have to tear down the walls all at once. We'll take it one step at a time. But you don't have to do this alone. I'm right here with you. The words felt like a promise, a vow that Emma knew he meant with all his heart. And in that moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop being afraid. It was time to let herself believe in the possibility of real love, a love that wasn't based on fear or doubt, but on trust and understanding. As the rain continued to fall outside, they sat together in the warmth of the apartment, hands intertwined, a quiet understanding passing between them. Emma knew there were still challenges ahead, still moments of uncertainty, but for the first time, she was ready to face them. She was ready to let herself love him, without reservation, without fear. And as Liam kissed her forehead softly, she closed her eyes, knowing that this was just the beginning of something beautiful, something that would last, something real. The future was still unknown, but for the first time in her life, Emma didn't need to know what came next. She just needed to believe that whatever it was, she would face it with Liam by her side.